So the next natural topic that we can talk about is astrology. And the reason why I'm picking astrology as the first topic is, one, because I find it really interesting and I'm selfish like that. And two, because I think it's the way that we can really bridge the gap between what I said in the first video of us being made of stars and stars, us being part of the stars out there and inside us based on the elements created in the universe. So are we still connected to the stars? So I think the way you can kind of answer that question is to study and investigate astrology. Now, astrology is about 2,000 years old, if anyone's counting. It is credited normally to the Babylonians and some other ancient races out there, but let's stick with that. Now, back then, it was astronomy and astrology were one and the same. They were both considered a science, and they used it to predict, when the seasons were going to change, when they should water crops, and then also these stars got, names and constellations, etc. But the way that astrology works, I don't think a lot of people understand the basic tenets of why those stars were picked and, what their influence is on us. But before I get there, I just want to put something for your consideration, okay? So that you don't think I'm too far-fetched here, and I really want you to follow me on this because I think you're going to learn a lot. And in the worst case scenario, you don't learn anything from me, but it'll be like Greek mythology, and it's like a cool story because they still teach Greek mythology in school, but we all just know it's a myth. So learn something about astrology, you'll learn something about ancient people, and then if you decide to take it on further and you realize, holy shit, there's actually some good stuff in here, then you can take it from there. If not, cool, whatever. But we still need to talk about astrology because this is something that's still popular and it's 2,000 years old. Okay. So if you ask anybody who works in the medical field, in the police field, firefighter, any type of, people that, work in nightclubs or something, just ask any of those people what happens on a full moon night. People go cray-cray. Like, they know that the hospitals need to be staffed more. Police officers know that, we expect a lot more crime. But we really don't have a way to explain why a full moon is causing people to behave erratically such that we need, more support staff from the government, from the police, from firefighters, etc. But we also do realize, and we all agree as a society, that the moon controls our tides along with the sun. So it's like, okay. So it controls the tides. It controls, the waves on Earth. We're made of water, right? Last I checked. I mean, like when I go back to the video, we have a lot of hydrogen and oxygen inside of us. And I remember the water figure, so I'm going to make one up right here on the fly. It's like 60% water or something like that. So we're literally made of water. But then the moon controls the tides, and it causes, waves to go from very little to very big on Earth. And it's like, okay, so we know that's true. We also know we're made of water. But then we don't think that the moon really has an effect on our emotions. But then you can ask people like firefighters and EMTs, like, yeah, like totally full moon nights are crazy. Like, we're always going to expect some weird ass shit those days. So there's something there. And that kind of goes on, what I was saying in the first video. There's something there. It doesn't agree with scientific theory, so let's throw it out. It's not real. But we're fighting that war. Don't forget we're fighting that war. You have to look deeper. You have to figure this out for yourself. And if you figure out that it's BS, that's fine. But I want you to get yourself in a position where you can make that decision and not let the societal norms and pressure cause you to default on a decision without even looking at it. So we know that the moon controls the tides. We're made of water. And we know that crazy stuff happens on a full moon. And so that kind of makes some sense, right? Like, you can kind of follow me on that the moon does that to water on Earth. It does that to our bodies. It causes us to be crazy. But how? How's it making us crazy? So the whole idea with astrology is the sky was divided up into 12 equal segments. But before I get to the 12 equal segments, I need to show you something. So I have a coaster right here. So if this is like kind of like our solar system, you would have the sun right here in the middle, and then you'd have like all the planets like circling around it, like Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, etc. They're all circling inside this disk with the sun at the center. Now what you have is this. So if you look at this white rim here on this disk, essentially we can kind of think of it as the sky in the background. So when you're on Earth, and so if the sun's right here where my finger's at, and then Earth's right here, let's say, and I know that's like way far out in this diagram, but I just needed a circle to show you something. But if you were to take your finger from Earth and draw a line to the sun, and then draw that line all the way through to the back right here, which there's no back of the universe that we know yet, but let's just say the back of stars that are behind the sun. This would be the constellation sign that you're assigned when you're born. So I'm a Leo, and I'm selfish like that, to use myself as an example, but the Earth was in a position where if you drew a straight line between 2 points, the Earth and the sun being the 2 points, and you hit the back of this rim or space, it would land in the group of stars that make up the constellation Leo. And the whole idea is your zodiac sign, normally when people don't say what planet or astral body it is, they're talking about the sun. So you're like, I'm Leo. I'm basically saying my sun sign is Leo. So for the sun to be in the sign Leo, from our perspective from Earth, if we were to look at the sun, which don't look at the sun without like some protective eyeglasses, and even in the solar eclipse, I know people were burning their retinas, which is like really silly, but if you were to draw that line, Leo would be back here. And if you know a little bit about astrology, the actual opposite sign of Leo is Aquarius. So if you were to draw a line the opposite way, so from the sun to Earth to this back, you would see the constellation Aquarius. And actually, during this time of Leo, you would only be able to see Aquarius in the sky because you can't look past the sun. But the whole concept is we know what the stars look like. We know when the sun goes into those stars that it's going to be the constellation Leo. And I did mention something about them using it for predicting the seasons. Now, the very interesting thing about astrology is there's a little bit of a method to it. So there's 4 elements, but I'll come back to those. But then there's markers for each season. So these are called modalities. You have a cardinal type sign, you have a fixed sign, and you have a mutable sign. And every single cardinal sign starts a season, and each season or new zodiac sign starts at the beginning of a season. So for example, the very first sign of the zodiac is Aries. Aries starts on pretty much around the first day of spring. Now, that's a cardinal sign, and then every single season's about 3 months because we have 4 seasons a year. They're about 3 months long because we only have 12 months a year. So in March 21st or whatever, or give or take a day, you have a sun sign. Anyone born during that time has a sun sign Aries, and then going into the next month, you're going to have a fixed sign, which is Taurus, and then the last sign is going to be a mutable sign, which happens to be Gemini. So really, every single season starts off with a cardinal, it sticks around with the fixed, and then it's mutable, kind of dispersed towards the end, and then that repeats. So when summer starts, first day of summer around June 21st, well, we've got a new zodiac sign. It's Cancer. Cancer starts on June 21st. It's a cardinal sign. And you move on to the fixed sign. Leo. Leo's a fixed sign. It's a fire sign. It's in the dead middle of summer, so it's a fixed sign. And then you have, ending off summer, which is Virgo, you have a mutable sign. And this process keeps going on until you do it 4 times. So they really use it to track the seasons because, put it this way, so if you go back to my example, where I'm talking about myself being born under the sun sign constellation Leo, with the Earth being here, with the sun being in the center, Leo would be back here. But we can't see through the sun, at least last we checked, unless we get some satellite or something. But when you look at the sky in reverse to the sun, I drop this right here. So if Leo's over here, and then Aquarius would be opposite sign here, so the Earth, looking the opposite direction of the sun, would see Aquarius. So in the night sky, you'd find Aquarius. And that's how you would know that you were in the middle of the summer, because Leo is a sign middle of the summer, and it's a fixed sign. And astrology basically tells you that when the sun is in a certain sign, it's going to exhibit certain energies. And then astrology goes much further than that. The sun sign is just one tiny part of you. You have a sign for every single planet. Every single planet has a different influence that it plays on people. If you can contend with the fact that the moon sort of makes people crazy and erratic, just like the tides do, then obviously the sun, being a supermassive body that we're all floating around, does that to us too, our sun sign. And then you look at all the other planets, yeah, they're kind of far away, but if the moon's doing something subtle that we tend to ignore because it doesn't fit in our scientific box, then all these planets have to be doing something too. And astrology really looks into what these planets' purposes are and what they do when they enter this sign and how that energy affects us. But to make a long story short, when you're born, you get a sun sign based on the constellation that's behind the sun when you're born. And you also get signs for every single planet, including the moon, and you get something called an ascendant. The 3 most important signs in astrology are the sun, moon, and ascendant, and I'm going to get into that in detail in another video. But astrology kind of has its roots in science from 2,000 years ago. They've separated and diverged because you're a crazy person if you're into astronomy and you also talk about astrology, and if you're into astrology, well, you're kind of into astronomy, but nobody's going to take you seriously because these things aren't considered to be one and the same. So one of the things we need to consider moving forward with the war against ourselves and everybody else in society is take a look at astrology and learn a little bit about it. Get a gradual base understanding so that you can understand what's at work there. And if you decide that you don't think it's applicable, then that's fine, but at least you learned something cool. So let's get on into this and let me know what you think.